Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory Imperial Guard List Doctor session. For those of you joining us for the first time, how these sessions work is I take a look at a list that's been sent in to me by a viewer and I see if there's anything I can do to improve it. Now, the point of these sessions isn't just for me to tear apart a list on stream. The whole point is that we're trying to get as much juice out of these lists as possible. Make them as efficient as we can so that when you go into your next game, you will be able to achieve victory. If you would like your list to be reviewed by the list doctor, then please send it in to mordianglorytv@gmail.com. And don't worry if you're like me and you're an ogre who's not had his bonehead surgery yet, that email address will be down in the description below. Now, since doing the last List Doctor episode, I have had loads of people send their lists in to me. Unfortunately, I'm only able to review one each week, but if you want me to give you some live feedback on your list and to do a review of it, then make sure you join one of the Mordian Glory live streams. I often do big sessions of list reviews in those live streams, and I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So make sure to join if you want to get your list reviewed and get live feedback. In addition to this, I also offer another service to any of my Patreons or channel members. And this is where you can send in an itinerary of all the models you have in your collection. And I will build you a list that is as competitive as possible based on the models that you own. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, make sure to check out channel membership or Patreon. But now let's take a look at this list. Now, it's been sent in to me by Diezel, who is a Patreon supporter, so massive thank you to him. And he's given me a little bit of context at the beginning. So he says, to the Honourable Mr. Dr. Professor War Master Mordian Glory Esquire. I absolutely love that. Greetings from the US. Here is a hybrid Cadian list for you. It utilizes the Suicide Platoon Commander Warlord Field Promotion Boogaloo you covered in a previous video, and tries to maximize the flexible command and boots on the ground, uses a mortar pit, and has some vanilla scions for R&D. He goes on to say that the first platoon commander is the warlord and sacrifices himself for the financial CP gain. He also has the second platoon commander with the mortar pit and the sniper command squad. He has some leftover points. Okay, well, we'll take a look at that. And then we've got the third platoon commander is in the bolter chimera with a command squad with a standard to rush the center of the field. And the flamer chimera has an infantry squad in it to push the center as well. Armor Sentinels serve as a can wall, pass sticks with the Manticores to pound them into dust, and Scions are for R&D and inflexible command. Hope you enjoy ripping up this list as much as I enjoy your videos, good sir. Regards, Diezel. Now, right away, before we get into the list, I just want to point out that PASS can't actually issue the order pound them into dust onto the Manticores. Pound them into dust is a Cadian specific order that allows you to re-roll the random number of shots. However, it very specifically says that this is only for Lehman Russ weapons. So sadly, you can't use your Cadian tank commanders or PASS to try and make those Manticores a lot less swingy. I really wish that you could, but sadly you can't. So we'll correct that as we get into the list later on. But I thought I'd just mention it at the beginning. So now let's get into the list proper, and I can see straight away that you've taken a brigade and you've taken it as Cadian, and I like that. I've mentioned this before, but I really think taking a brigade for your Cadians is the way to go with them now, because it allows you to save a lot of CP that you would normally be spending on taking extra detachments, and I just don't quite think that you can squeeze everything you need in a guard army into a single battalion, especially if you're running a hybrid guard list. And the reason it's so important to save those command points as Cadian is because Cadians have a lot of really good stratagems that you'll find in the Octarius book, The Rising Tide. But the problem is that stratagems cost CP. And under the new Nephilim regime, we only start with 6 command points. Now, you are going to gain more throughout the game. Of course, you gain 1 in your turn and your opponent's turn. But Cadians like to burn their CP early and get a good lead with that extra damage output. So that's why I tend to find when I'm building my Cadian list, I'm going for a brigade. It means I've got those CP that I need to feed the Cadian machine. So then getting into the HQ choices, we've got Knight Commander Pask with a battle cannon, a lance cannon, storm bolter, and 2 heavy bolters. We've then got Creed. We've got another tank commander with gatekeeper, las cannon, and 2 heavy bolters. And then we've got another tank commander with Demolisher siege cannon and triple heavy bolter. And last but not least, we've got a Tempesta Prime. So straight away, I'd probably say that I would downgrade Knight Commander Pass to just a regular tank commander. I've been running a lot of guard tank commanders recently, and I have found that you don't really need 4 tank commanders or 2 tank commanders and Pass. 3 tank commanders is actually more than enough direct firepower. So in this case, I'd save myself a few points and I'd downgrade him to a regular tank commander. I also wouldn't really bother with the battle cannon or the storm bolter or the 2 heavy bolters. Frankly, I'd just give this guy a demolisher cannon and a heavy flamer. If you want to take sponsons, I'd go triple heavy flamer and demolisher cannon, but I wouldn't go for battle cannon and heavy bolters. I've really found that my standard heavy bolter sponsons haven't been doing as much work ever since Armor of Contempt became a thing. Looking at the other tank commanders, I would definitely keep the Gatekeeper one. He's really good, and it's up to you if you want to pay for that las cannon. It's a little bit decadent, but it's not a bad upgrade. But again, I probably wouldn't bother with the 2 heavy bolters. I've just been finding them really lacking ever since Arm of Contempt came in. And that last tank commander, what I would do is, again, either drop those 2 heavy bolters or swap all those heavy bolters out for triple heavy flamer. But the Demolisher Siege Cannon is definitely a good choice. For me, when I'm running my Cadians, I really like to take 2 Demolisher tank commanders and then 1 long-range Gatekeeper tank commander. That I have found to be really effective. Now, the Tempesta Prime is kind of an interesting choice, but I don't think it is necessarily a required one. The thing is, if you're taking the Tempesta Prime because you're like, I want to be able to still do Inflexible Command, the funny thing about Inflexible Command is it doesn't specify that you need to be within range of a regiment officer. It just says you need to be within range of an infantry Astra Militarum officer. So actually, company commanders can do the Inflexible Command thing for your scions, which is pretty good. However, if you are deep striking well outside of that 24-inch range bubble that you can do with your officers and your command squads, then that means the Tempesta Prime also doesn't quite work, because the problem is that you're going to be bringing down one of your Tempesta Scion squads turn 2, and one of them turn 3, trying to get retrieve Nephilim data. But that Tempesta Prime won't be able to be in range of both of those squads each time, because he's going to have to come down turn 2 to be with the first squad, but then he's not going to be able to get over to the second squad to be able to do their retrieve Nephilim data and inflexible command. So I just don't think he quite works, and to be honest, I'll be getting into this a little bit later when we get to the Militarum Tempesta, but I'm not a big fan of retrieve Nephilim data at all. I think it's been made a lot more difficult to do, and a savvy opponent will very, very easily screen it out. So if it was up to me, what I would do is I'd actually drop this Tempesta Prime and save the points. Now in total, when we look at points savings made, if we drop Knight Commander Pass down to a regular tank commander and we give him a Demolisher Cannon and just triple heavy flamer, then that should save us 33 points. And then if we drop that Tempesta Prime, who's not really carrying out his function anyway, that'll save us another 40 points, which will save us a total of 73 points. So already we're making some pretty significant savings that we can use to help make this list a little bit more efficient. So taking a look at the troop choices next, we've got 6 infantry squads. Now each one of these squads has got a grenade launcher, a Voxcaster, and a bolt gun, and a power sword. Now off the top of my head, I'm saying, why aren't you taking a heavy weapon team? They're free. Just take them. If you haven't got the models, that's absolutely fine, but you should be taking them. Now, I know that some people will be raising an eyebrow here because I have said in the past that it doesn't really matter what weapons you give your infantry squads. They're all just going to be doing supplementary firepower anyway. That is true to a certain degree, but there's still no good reason for not taking free upgrades. There's still no good reason for not leveraging as much as you can out of those squads. And occasionally, you will find that that extra heavy bolter shot, that extra lads cannon shot actually does help. The other weapon gear choices I have a problem with is those grenade launchers and those bolt guns. Quite frankly, you should not be taking grenade launchers. They are one of the worst choices you can take in your infantry squads. They just don't do any damage. What you really want to be taking is either plasma or melter. Just plasma or melter for days, boys. That's just the golden rule. And that kind of applies to your sergeant as well. Why has he got a bolt gun? Why not running in with a plasma pistol? You literally might as well. It's a vastly superior weapon and it might actually do some damage. Again, infantry squad firepower is relatively unimportant, but if you can squeeze a bit more juice out of it, it will help. And every so often, you will do an extra wound here and there, and that can only be a good thing. So straight away, get rid of those grenade launchers, get yourself some plasma melter, get rid of those bolt guns, get yourself some plasma pistols, and for the love of God, take some heavy weapon teams. I almost don't care what heavy weapon teams you take, but my personal preference is either heavy bolters or las cannons. I also want to say that I'm not a big fan of the fact you've only got 6 infantry squads. That is truly not enough in my mind. I don't leave home without a minimum, a absolute bare minimum of 100 infantry. Or for every infantry squad I have, I would also be taking like a Chimera and going down a mechanized route. 60 infantry just isn't enough. You won't be able to screen. Your tanks are going to get tied up. You won't be able to play the primary game very well because you won't have enough obsec bodies. You won't be able to deny enemy objectives because you won't have enough obsec bodies. You won't be able to get your secondaries like boots on the ground. Just overall, 60 infantry is not enough, and to be honest, the main focus of this list, Doctor, is going to be me trying to save points so I can squeeze you out some more infantry. Now, taking a look at these scions, straight away, I noticed there's actually a slight mistake in your list, dude, and you're actually paying 54 points per scion squad rather than 45, and I think the reason that's happened is because you've forgotten on Battlescribe to take off one of the 4 starting scions, and you've actually added an extra scion with a Voxcast, so straight away, you're actually saving 18 points because you've taken 1 too many scions in those squads, or you're going for 6-man squads, in which case, don't go for 6-man squads, go for 5-man squads, and again, save yourself 18 points. To be honest though, I would probably drop both of these scion squads because I am not a fan of RND in any way, shape or form. I think it's a secondary that is a bit of a trap and I don't like it. And the reason for that is either you get it off 3 times, but your opponent screens you out on that 4th one. Okay, fair enough, but you've only got 8 victory points. Any secondary that you're not getting 10 victory points on is a bad secondary and you shouldn't be taking it. Or the opponent screens you out massively, and this is very easy to do on smaller boards in 9th edition, and you only get 4 victory points for getting it off twice, and then it's a really, really bad secondary. Thing is, if you do manage to get all 12 points in R&D, let me tell you, you've already won the game anyway, because if your opponent has got so little that they can't screen you out, then that means that you've already smashed them, you've already picked up most of their army, and quite frankly, you're probably going to be winning the game anyway. So that's why I don't like R&D. It doesn't help you win games, and if you max it out, you're already going to be winning that game anyway. Now let's take a look at these elite choices, and straight away I like these first 2 command squads. I think they're really, really good. However, I definitely do not like that 3rd command squad with the sniper rifles. It's just 4 points you don't need to spend, mate, at the end of the day. And what you've got to remember is you do not want to be tempted to use that command squad in an offensive capacity. It literally wants to be sitting out of line of sight, doing inflexible command, doing orders. That's all it wants to be doing, just supporting your officer. The moment that that thing gets exposed to the light of day, it's going to get picked up very, very quickly. And you cannot afford that risk. You need all 3 command squads to really cover the board and make sure you're getting a flexible command whilst being able to do boots on the ground, whilst being able to do your orders. It's just a really, really effective thing, and you don't want to be risking that. And then we've got the Militarum Tempestus command squad, and like I said about the other sounds, I probably wouldn't bother this. However, there is one argument to be made for it. You could keep that Tempestus Prime, and you could keep that Militarum Tempestus command squad, because the funny thing about inflexible command is, as I said before, it doesn't say you have to be within range of a guard officer, it just says you have to be in range of an officer. So your scions could, and your scion commander, could actually help you get more inflexible command around the board. The thing is, I played a game recently with just 3 command squads and 3 officers, and that was more than enough for my inflexible command. More than enough. So honestly, I don't think you need the extra command squad. I don't think you need the extra coverage. I don't think you need the redundancy. I frankly think that you can drop all the scions out of this list and save yourself a boatload of points, which will be much better served elsewhere. We then get to the 3 platoon commanders, and I like these. Nothing really to say about them. You're going to be losing one of them to get the XCP. That's fine, which means realistically you're hitting this board with 2 platoon commanders and Creed. That's going to give you 5 orders, a 6th one in the bank if you spend that CP. That's more than enough. That's enough to get you a few moves for your boots on the ground, and it's enough to help you get plenty of 1st rank fire, 2nd rank fire, and a couple of other bits going off as well. So yeah, I think that's more than enough orders, and I think 3 platoon commanders and Creed is enough. We've then got the fast attack choice with the 3 armored sentinels, and I'll be honest with you, I know you said you were going to cam wall with these, but 3 individual sentinels isn't really enough of a cam wall, to be totally honest with you. You're going to want at least 6 sentinels, or maybe even the full 9. What I would actually do with these sentinels is make them scout sentinels, and I'd give them las cannons. Now the reason I would do that is because the main reason I would take scout sentinels over armor sentinels is because you're going to want to take them in case you come across an army that can do a turn 1 deep strike. These are armies like Thousand Suns and Grey Knights, which have got various ways of teleporting around the battlefield turn 1. So what you do with the scout sentinels is you use their pre-game move to push them back. Now against those factions, the heavy flame, it really isn't very helpful at all, because they've got Armor of Contempt. And the other thing is that if you're not facing one of those factions, you don't necessarily want to push your Armor Sentinels up early, because if you're facing, let's say, like a combat faction, then all you're going to be doing is giving them a chance to zoom up the board faster by getting an early charge off. And if you're facing off against a shooting army, then those heavy flamers are unlikely to get in range before the relatively fragile Scout Sentinels have died. So that's why we then take Las Cannons, because what happens is if we don't face one of those factions, what we can do with our Las Cannon Scout Sentinels is just have them chilling at the back, not giving away any potential bring it down points, and instead firing off a few long-range las cannon shots to support your firepower. I used some of these Sentinels in my last game, and it was really, really effective, and they actually ended up taking off the majority of the wounds from a Necron Annihilation Barge. Not bad for a unit that is generally considered a tax unit. Makes it a lot more tactically flexible. It means it can do its pushing back option, or it can provide a little bit of extra fire support. So for me, Scout Sentinels with las cannons are actually pretty good. Moving on to the heavy support, we've got a couple of mod squads, nothing wrong with those, and then we've got a Manticore. Now, you guys know that I prefer the Basilisk, but the Manticore is still a totally serviceable unit, and especially with full payload, it's not bad at all. However, I would say with Cadians, I prefer the Basilisk because it has the more reliable number of shots. Manticores can be hella swingy. Especially now that we know we can't do pound them into dust on this unit. For me, I would definitely consider swapping this out to a Basilisk. So moving on to the dedicated transports, I see that you've got two Chimeras, and you've taken one with a heavy flame and a multi-laser and one with a heavy bolter multi-laser. And quite frankly, dude, I just make these the same. And if you're not going double heavy flamer on your Chimeras, then you definitely want to be going multi-laser, heavy bolter, and a storm bolter. That loadout is really, really good for triggering Hammer of the Emperor. If you're shooting the Daka Chimera, then it means that you're going to be getting at long range 2 to 3 Hammer of the Emperor auto wounds, and at close range, when you're getting all those Lasgun Array shots, all of those Stormbolter shots, you're looking at 22 shots, which is 3 to 4 Hammer of the Emperor from a cheap little 78-point vehicle. It's a really effective loadout. So my advice to you is go double heavy flamer on these Chimeras, or go for the Daka Chimera. So going through and adding up all the points that I've saved from this list, if we drop Knight Commander Pass down to a regular Tank Commander with a Demolish Cannon Triple Heavy Flamer, and we drop the Tempesta Prime, and we drop these Scions here, we drop the Sniper Rifles, we drop this Tempesta Command Squad, and we also drop this down to a Basilisk, then we should end up with 255 points. Now, what I would do with those points is either straight up just get 4 more infantry squads, which brings you to 100 infantry and 2 chimeras, which for me equates to the sort of minimum 100 to 120 infantry that you want to take. Side note, I always say that a chimera is basically equal to about 10 more infantry in terms of the durability and flexibility it gives your list. Or I'd go a completely different direction, and instead of taking more infantry, I'd go mechanized infantry and get 3 more chimeras. That means you'd have 5 chimeras and 6 infantry squads, which, as we've just said, would come to the equivalent of about taking 100 to 110 infantry, which is pretty good. Also lets you go down a little bit of a different route. You go down armor saturation, you've got 3 tank commanders, you've got a basilisk, and you've got yourself 5 chimeras. That's actually quite a lot of armor for most normal armies in 40k to chew through. Another third option you can do is actually just take 2 more chimeras, which means you have 6 infantry squads and 4 chimeras, which is the bare minimum. You know, that's the 100 infantry equivalent. And then you would have enough points left over to get yourself an Astropath. Now, the reason you might like the Astropath is it's going to allow you to remove cover on enemy units, but it also means that you'll be able to open up a whole raft of psychic secondaries, and that might really help with your secondary scoring. And that about covers it, really. So that's all we've got time for today. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Then I hope you found it helpful. If you have enjoyed it, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. And if you've got any feedback for this list or anything that I've said, please put it down in the comment section below. If you've really enjoyed today's video and you want to see more content like this, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. It is thanks to the very generous support of my channel members and of my patrons that I'm able to do lots more content and do cool things like List Doctor. And I just want to take a moment to say a thank you to our latest channel members and Patreon supporters. So a big thank you to Solex, Michael Zisler, Omnisfile Sphinx, Alex E, Fuck You Google, John Penn, Curtis Hoteling, Elliot Walker, The Flying Flail, Imperial Jake, and George Rothwell for becoming channel members. Thank you guys. Thank you for doing your part. And a big thank you to the latest channel Patreons as well. So thank you to Marshall, Diezel, Goodwin Games, Museum Fremen, Dennis W, and Faithless Gaming Inc. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters, the War Masters. These are the people that have truly gone above and beyond the Call of Duty when it comes to supporting my channel, and I am genuinely, eternally grateful to them. So massive thank you, and an 07 down in the comment section, boys, for Navy Veteran, Philip French, Ross Miller, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh, Swordfish Trombone, Diezel Fox, Tom Sutton, and Sly Varney, the one-man super chatting army. Massive thank you to all of you guys, and I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.